Before James Bond became 007, MI6 had a quantum computer so powerful it could predict assassinations, terrorist attacks, betrayals, and threats to global security. But after Bond proved the machine was not as perfect as MI6 thought, he started pulling on a thread that led to a conspiracy buried deep inside MI6 itself.
I suppose this is another teachable moment.
We begin our story in Iceland, flying over the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. During a special air service retrieval operation, everything goes to hell when the SAS helicopters are shot down. The teams are wiped out, and the only man left standing is Royal Navy air crewman James Bond. This is a young Bond, before the tux, before the martinis,
Shaken but not disturbed.
and before the government-funded property damage. After picking up an MI6 transmission, Bond is contacted by a woman who needs eyes on the ground. That woman, who we'll later find out is Moneypenny, sends him toward the original target, a research camp studying a crashed satellite. Inside the camp, Bond discovers the stolen asset MI6 came to recover. The whole place is rigged to explode and innocent people are still trapped inside. Moneypenny tells Bond to extract, so Bond, naturally, does the exact opposite. He goes back in, saves the survivors, and destroys the camp in the process. So congratulations, James. You saved lives, ignored orders, and blew up an invaluable MI6 asset. That is either a crime, a miracle, or the strongest job application in British history. 1 month later, Bond is brought into MI6 headquarters, meets Moneypenny in person, and is taken to M, the head of the agency. And instead of throwing him into the deepest prison imaginable, M offers him a job.
Look, I know where this is going. You can spare me the velvet gloves. Do you mind telling me why I'm here?
I would like you to join His Majesty's Secret Service.
Because in Iceland, MI6 calculated that Bond had less than 1% chance of success, but he did it anyway. Apparently, too reckless to listen is also qualified to be a spy. Bond joins the revived 00 training program, but the other recruits are already months ahead. His instructor is John Greenway, a former 00 and a man whose entire personality is read the terms and conditions. Greenway hates Bond immediately. Bond is arrogant, impulsive, undisciplined, and allergic to authority, which, to be fair, is a pretty solid 007 starter pack. Bond trains with Cressida Bright and Monroe, and a huge chunk of the early story is basically one giant MI6 training montage. Fighting, driving, gadgets, social engineering, and Bond somehow turning every test into a disciplinary hearing. But underneath all that, Cressida and Monroe become his first real family in MI6, which in a Bond origin story is basically the game screaming, "Do not get attached." Then M shows Bond the real secret behind MI6's success, Thea.
The world's first and only second-generation quantum computer.
I thought those things were theoretical at best.
That's what we want you to think.
Thea is a quantum computer that predicts threats before they happen. Minority Report, anyone?
But let's not kid ourselves. We are arresting individuals who have broken no law.
But they will. The commission of the crime itself is absolute metaphysics. The precongs see the future, and they're never wrong.
But it's not the future if you stop it.
According to M, it has prevented attacks, saved agents, and made MI6 more effective than ever. Basically, it is the ultimate spy cheat code. But Bond already knows the problem. Thea was wrong about him, and that is why M wants the 00 program back. Because sometimes the best answer to a perfect machine is one charming man with great hair and terrible respect for authority. After some training missions and classic Bond rule bending, former 009 resurfaces. His real name is Reese Beckett, and MI6 believes he is a traitor who vanished after Operation Nightfall, the disaster that destroyed the old 00 program. Now 009 claims he has evidence of a conspiracy against the state, but he will only talk to Greenway. The meeting is set at a luxury hotel during the World Chess Championship, because every spy conspiracy needs chandeliers, rich people, and terrible vibes. MI6 sends the recruits undercover. Bond gets assigned as a chauffeur because Greenway is not above using national security as workplace bullying. But the operation collapses, 009 escapes, chaos breaks out, and Bond meets a mysterious woman named Charlotte Roth, later Isola. She is exactly the kind of person Bond shouldn't trust, But she gives him enough tragedy charm and, trust me, I hate these people too energy to make him believe that they're on the same side, which means he will absolutely trust her. The hunt for 009 leads Bond and Greenway to a black market hub where they find 009 tortured and dead.
All clear. Gone. An hour ago, maybe less.
Christ.
Gut shot. Bled out slowly while they worked him over.
Why not just shoot him and be done? Why the mess?
Well, clearly they were trying to make a point.
And after that, the conspiracy starts closing in fast. Bond survives an assassination attempt at his old apartment by the Murtaugh twins. Tracking them leads him straight into Nicholas Webb's orbit, the smiling AI tech genius behind Thea. But he starts looking a lot less like a savior and a lot more like the man pulling the strings.
What is he doing here? You know I handle MI6.
They were onto us, and I didn't think that we had time for your back-channeling.
That is precisely the problem. You don't think.
And that's when Greenway reveals Operation Nightfall. Years ago, Thea identified a mole ring inside British intelligence. 3 00 agents were accused. 009 was one of them. Greenway hunted them down, the old program collapsed, and 009 became the traitor MI6 blamed for everything. But Bond realizes the story is backwards. 009 wasn't hiding because he betrayed MI6, he was hiding because someone framed him. The evidence points directly to Webb. At first look, Webb looks like a national treasure, the visionary who gave MI6 the future, but the truth is, Thea was never perfect, it made mistakes, and Webb covered them up. Whenever Thea predicted something false, Webb and his son Damien changed the real world to make the machine look right. If Thea accused someone, they planted evidence. If Thea saw a pattern, they created the pattern. If Thea needed a threat, Damien made sure one existed. Which means 009 was never the traitor. Operation Nightfall was built on false intelligence, and Greenway spent over a decade trusting the system that ruined innocent people. Bond and Greenway try to expose Webb, but Webb accuses them of terrorism and hides behind politics. So M sends Bond on an off-the-books mission to Vietnam, where Thea has flagged a new pattern of scientist deaths connected to a terrorist called Caliban. But there's a small issue. Interpol found Caliban's charred remains in a Mexican landfill, and forensics say that he has been dead for months. So Damien isn't chasing Caliban, he's staging copycat murders to make Thea's wrong prediction look true. Bond goes undercover at the Pearl as St. John Smythe, checks the guest ledger and finds 3 possible targets: Ramon Hernandez, Ellis White, and Teresa Lorca, a beautiful geneticist he meets and immediately starts bonding with.
You seem the kind of guy who knows what he likes. So let me guess, you don't like it too sweet, you don't like it too complicated, you like it straight up.
I've been known to experiment.
Audio. James. Still on.
His job is to get close,
Not that close.
bug the targets, and figure out who Damien came to kill. Bond saves Teresa from a fiery death, gets the proof, and Greenway comes back to help. The man who spent the whole game calling Bond reckless finally realizes Bond was right. Greenway helps to stop Damien, but he is mortally wounded. Before he dies, he tells Bond he was wrong about him. Bond has heart, and in this job, that might be the only thing that keeps him human. After Greenway's death, Webb threatens to leak MI6 secrets and expose agents around the world. The government folds and Webb gets immunity. Bond watches the man responsible for ruining 009, destroying Greenway's life, and unleashing Damien walk away. Apparently mass conspiracy is fine if you have enough political connections. But Bond and Moneypenny figure out one last secret. If Thea was never hacked, then Webb must have another way to stay ahead. A mirror system, a second quantum computer, Hyperion. With Hyperion, Webb could see what Thea saw, predict MI6's moves, and manipulate the future from the shadows. Moneypenny warns Bond that going after it would be reckless, illegal, and probably treason. Bond promises not to do anything stupid, so obviously he immediately robs Q Branch. Bond teams up with Isola and infiltrates Webb's secret Antarctic facility because billionaire villains are legally required to hide supercomputers somewhere frozen and dramatic. Bond reaches Hyperion, but Isola betrays him. She admits at least part of her tragic backstory was crafted to manipulate him, fatally wounds Webb, and escapes with the core. Because Bond's greatest weakness isn't bullets, explosions, or impossible odds. It's emotionally complicated women with great timing. Bond manages to stop Isola and destroy the Hyperion core.
They won't take you back, you know? You will rot in a cell and leave nothing behind but a black and foul.
This is Bond. The threat is neutralized. I could use a ride. +1.
But MI6 itself comes under attack. Damien makes one final move to steal Thea's core and sell it to the highest bidder. Q gives Bond the Valhalla, aka the British Batmobile, and the spy story turns into an underground demolition derby. Damien tells Bond that everyone around him always dies and that he will end up alone. And the brutal part is, we know that fear follows Bond for the rest of his life. But this Bond is not broken yet. He still has Moneypenny, Q, and Greenway's warning. Do not lose your heart. Bond defeats Damien by drowning him, but Bond nearly drowns too until he's saved by Isola. She takes Thea's core and disappears. Afterward, the truth is buried, Webb's public legacy is protected, and MI6 survives. Because spies live and die in the dark, but M knows what Bond has become. Not the safest recruit, not the most obedient, not the guy Thea would choose in a million years, but the guy who kept doing the right thing when the machine, the system, and the orders all failed. Bond takes the only number that befits such a lucky agent.
I suppose this makes you 001.
It wouldn't be right. Actually, Mom, I thought since I was the 7th recruit.
Happens to be my lucky number. Perhaps you'd be so kind as to do some digging. 007.
Mom, I thought you'd never ask.
If you enjoyed this 007 story recap, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We do recaps weekly and reviews. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you in the comments below.